if you have your Bibles this morning, Genesis 25 to 34. So there was a friend in the Walthamstow church, or he is a friend, should I say, that fell into a difficult situation along his way of his salvation, should I say. At the moment, he's in a very good moment, you know. But before we came out to Enfield, you know, he wasn't in church at that very moment in time. And what had happened was he was in a very good moment. He's working, you know, not living at home, paying for his rent, doing very good, you know. And eventually, he ended up starting a job in a restaurant. And at this place, certain things didn't allow him to do the things of God that he was doing outside of work, you know. And eventually, I started to see a deterioration in his salvation, you know. And at first, I took notice of it, but he kept coming to church. He kept doing the things that he was meant to be doing, or the things that he was able to do. So it made me take a step back, and it made me think to myself, maybe he is in a good moment. You know, maybe he is okay. And eventually, you know, he calls me one evening, he says, Yan, I've done something horribly wrong. I've done something and I don't know what to do now. And he says, hey, I slept with my manager. And I said, huh? So then he said, I said to him, where are you now? He said, I'm still at the house. I said, leave now. He says, I can't, I've got to leave in the morning. There's no trains, there's no sort of transport for me to get back. I've got to leave in the morning. Anyway, morning comes and he leaves. You know, he goes off and as I'm talking to him in the morning, you know, we're going through how it all happens. And he's telling me everything that's taken place. He's telling me how it all happened, the thoughts that was going on in his mind, everything that was going on at that moment in time. And he just said it was just a freak moment. You know, and I said to him, you know, this is a very important part of your salvation now. It's a part where you can either turn around and say, you know, forget this whole God thing and to live your own life, or you can get yourself right. And God will restore, you know, he will redo what he was meant to do in the first place in your life. You know, and many months go by, you know, like I said, he was out of church. He comes back into church. I have a conversation with him and he says, Jan, I almost lost my future. I almost lost my destiny for a pleasure of the moment. Pleasure of the moment. You know, there was a song by the Black Eyed Peas that came out a few years back called Now Generation. I'm going to read a few lyrics from this song. It says, I want money, I want it, I want it, I want it. Fast internet, stay connected in the jet. Wi-Fi, podcasts, blasting out an SMS. Text me, I'll text you back. Check me on the iChat. I'm all about the HTPC, you're a PC, I'm a Mac. I want it. MySpace in your space. Facebook is that new place. Deep diving, socializing, I'll be out in cyberspace. Google is my professor, Wikipedia is the checker. Checking my account, logging in and logging out. I want it now, this is the now generation. This is the generation now, we are the now generation. I want it now. I want the cold hard cash, I want it now. You know, and it made me think, this is the generation that we actually live in. You know, where people are saying, I want it now. You know, everything is much quicker nowadays. You know, who remembers the dial-up internet? You know, that took ages to work. But now, you know, you have 4G, you have super fiber optic internet where it comes instantly. There are nowadays, you know, things come much quicker. People don't write letters anymore. People send emails. People don't go and knock at their friends' houses anymore. People just log on to their PlayStations or log on to WhatsApp to get hold of their friends. The now generation, it's a generation, well, it's defined as a generation where typically young people described as wanting everything to be given to them as quickly as possible in return for as little effort or sacrifice as possible. Another definition says the current generation of young people who seem to only want instant gratification. Someone once said, kids in the now generation just want to know the value of don't want to know the value of an honest day's work. We live in the now generation. We see it, that we live in the now generation. But the danger of living in the now generation, there are some good things to it. Let me first and foremost put that out there. Not everyone has time to be writing letters. Sometimes we do have to send emails pronto. You get what I'm saying? But there are some dangers to it. And the danger is that we can get things that we don't necessarily need, but we can still get it. At the drop of a hat, it can be things that we can get that can seriously destroy or seriously disrupt, our spiritual walk. Things that can hinder us in terms of what to do next, in terms of how we can live our life, in terms of how we perceive ourselves. And our scripture here today is a perfect example of someone who paid the price for wanting something now. Not wanting something that they need, but just wanting something now in this moment in time. Just for that excitement, just for that bit of joy, just for that bit of satisfaction, just for that moment of pleasure. Genesis 25:25 to 34 says, and the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over, so they called his name Esau. Afterwards, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field and was very weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. Therefore his name was called Edom. But Esau said, sell me your birthright as of this day. And Esau said, look, I am about to die, so what is this birthright to me? Then Jacob said, swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils, and he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Then thus Esau despised his birthright. So here we have Abraham's grandsons, Jacob and Esau. Esau comes out first. Jacob comes out next. The scripture says, holding his heel. And we're given this situation, we're given this scenario here where Esau comes from a hard day's work. Who's ever come in from a hard day's work and you're smelling some good food? People, my wife can cook. Let me just put that out there, And when I'm coming from work and I know my wife is cooking, hey, I'm ready to eat straight away. If there's ever a moment in time where I come in from work and I don't smell my wife's cooking, I don't feel hungry. I don't know why, but I don't feel hungry. But if I come in and I smell my wife's food, straight away I'm ready to eat. So we see Esau coming in, and he can smell the food. It says that he smelled the soup, and he's ready to eat. He's coming from a hard day's work. But Jacob gives him a scenario here. He gives him a situation that we spoke about. I want it now. That moment of pleasure. The birthright is something that is very important and something that is very significant in the Hebrew tradition. The child that has the birthright, basically gets the property, gets most of the property, should I even say, when the father passes away. He's the person that becomes the family priest or someone that's a leader in the household. He's the main authority when the father passes away. Esau doesn't see this as something that's important. He doesn't see this as something that's very precious. So what he says actually to Jacob is, what good is it to me if I die anyway? It's not good. But let's be honest. If we look back at our scripture, let's be honest, Esau comes in from a hard day's work and he says, what good is it to me if I die? Is he really going to die from coming in from a hard day's work? You may feel like you're going to die. You may feel exhausted and really tired, but let's be honest, you're not going to die from a hard day's work. But he says, I'm going to die anyway. So what good is it to me? Let me just give it away. So he gives it away. He sells his birthright to his brother for soup. For a bowl of soup. Not even some rice and peas, not even some jello, but a bowl of soup. Gives his birthright away. He says he's about to die. What good is it to me? And you see, the problem here that we face in today's society, the problem that we may also face in our own lives, is that sometimes we can be willing to live for today and not think about tomorrow. We can be willing to as Drake says, YOLO, You only live once, so let's live in the moment. Rather than thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, rather than thinking about what's going to happen the next day or next week, rather than thinking about the consequences. Someone say consequences. They'd rather just live for the fun rather than the consequences. There was a man named Michael Felicitas. Michael Felicitas. Candy shook her head like she knows what I'm talking about. Michael Felicitas. So this guy, in 2017, he entertained the nation by going on Love Island. Everyone knows what Love Island is, right? Yeah, we weren't saved once, but we're saved, okay? So we all know what I'm talking about, all right? So he entertained the nation by going on this program called Love Island. After Love Island, what usually happens is people become celebrities. Yeah. So this man, he became a celebrity. He went on another show a year later called Celebs Go Dating. So he's going on these shows now. He's getting paparazzi following him, taking pictures. And he's going to parties here, he's going to parties there, he's making new friends, making celebrity friends. But it all gets too much for him at one point. It all gets too much for him. Everything that's happening around him, he doesn't get a moment of peace anymore. Yeah. It all gets too much for him. And then he actually goes to a friend and says, you know what, I'm in a very, very dark place. I'm having all these things happening around me. I'm having so much fun. Things are really entertaining me. Things are really going well, but I'm really in a very dark place. And 2 years after going on Love Island, making his big debut, entertaining the nation, he's found hanging in a park. Found dead hanging in a park. And we can see this throughout many different TV programs. Many different things that happen on TV, many different things that we see out in people's lives as well, that they're having fun, they're laughing, they're joking, they're entertaining each other, but they're not thinking about the consequences. Yes. No concern for the consequences. Not really thinking about what's happening, what's going to happen next in life. And again, this could be something for us as well. We can come to make decisions sometimes and we don't think about the consequences. We don't think about what could possibly go wrong here. I remember speaking to a brother a few weeks back actually, and he was saying to me, hey, there was an investment that came up, there was a great chance that I can make triple my salary in this investment, and I gave a lot of money in without thinking about the consequences. And he said it left as soon as it came in. He said that the money disappeared as soon as I gave it away. The consequences. We don't think about we don't inject this word consequences into our decision making. Into the things that we do, into the things that we get involved in. We don't think about this word consequences. I remember the first time I took drugs, or I smoked drugs, should I even say. I remember it very clearly. I remember how I felt, the high that I felt. You know, the peace that I felt at that time. You know, the calm that I felt. You know, things were moving so slow. I remember hearing my heart beating. Boom, 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 boom. I remember that moment. And I remember after that moment as well, how I felt. And I remember saying to myself, that was one of the best feelings I've had ever. And I remember a few weeks later, actually, you know, going to an illegal rave. You know, I'm saved now, let me just say that. Yeah. I remember going to an illegal rave. You know, it was an abandoned house. I didn't know what I was doing there, but I followed a few friends there. And I remember going into the toilets there and just banging on the doors, you know, and just trying to get in to use the toilet, but they were locked. So I said, you know, let me just wait. People are inside, they're probably doing their business. And I very clearly remember hearing someone go. So at first I just thought, hey, someone's just probably blowing their nose or something. But I hear it again. And almost instantly someone bursts out the toilet and he starts shaking. He says, I've got to move. And he literally, it seemed as though he bounced out of the toilets. He comes out of the toilets and I just remember something inside me saying, you know, this is the road that you're going down. I don't know what it was. I don't know who it was. But all I remember hearing is, this is the road that you're going down. And as I've come out of the toilet, I've said to myself, I don't want to end up like this. I don't want to end up like this. You know, I saw the consequences of the decisions or the things that I was doing. But that's not the case for everyone. You know, it's not the case that we can always see the outcome of how or where we start in the very beginning. And as we're sitting here today, thinking about consequences, thinking about decisions that we make in life, thinking about the pleasures of our decisions. Sometimes we never seem to understand that, you know, this is a generation that the sacrifices that we make, or the decisions that we make, should I say, it sacrifices our future. Yeah. The pleasure of those decisions in the moment, it sacrifices our future. It's really detrimental to where our lives could end up. Yeah. So how do we end up here is the question. How do people end up where they end up? How do they end up, you know, facing or face flat in the gutter? How do people end up there? First and foremost, you know, we have to look at what takes place, and firstly, it's when people disregard the sacred values of life. People disregard it. When people stop thinking about, you know, the moral things of life. You know, I went to a Catholic primary school and secondary school, and I knew of God, but I knew very little of God, should I even say. And I remember being in primary school, learning about the 10 Commandments. Who's ever learned about the 10 Commandments before? I remember being in primary school, learning about the 10 Commandments. And there was no inside secret message behind it. You know, it's very plain and simple. You shouldn't lie, you shouldn't steal. You should obey your parents, you shouldn't murder. It was very, very simple. The message behind that was very, very simple. And what I understood is that there's consequences to these things as well. You know, if you don't do these things, you're breaking God's law. I understood this. I understood that, hey, there's consequences to these things. You know, and as we go through life, you know, as I went through life, should I say, I continue to hear about the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments here, 10 Commandments there, 10 Commandments here. And I understood that many people, many societies, should I say, they use this as something that's very upheld and something that's very sacred. Something that's very honored in life. You know, countries, communities will display the commandments, or they will display it on their badges, they will display it on their welcome signs to say, hey, you know, we have a standard, and our standard is the biblical standard. You know, but in 2017, the Supreme Court, which is the House of Parliaments, is quite equivalent to the House of Parliaments in America. They had the 10 Commandments outside the Supreme Courts, and people rallied for years to get it removed, and in 2017 it was removed. You know, we look at the nation of America, even before the year 2017, they needed God.
Yes.
And even now, so much so, they need God. You know, to get rid of the 10 Commandments is to say basically, hey, you know, we don't need to follow what God is telling us. We don't need to follow what the Bible says. We don't need to follow what God is saying. And it made me think, actually, you know, as people read these 10 Commandments, they're understanding that, hey, I'm doing something wrong. I'm violating these commandments. You know, and as they're violating it, they're saying to them, it's a reminder to themselves that there's consequences to these violations. There's something that's going to happen. There's something that could possibly happen. That's why people will actually walk around and say, I don't believe in God, because they understand that there's consequences if I do believe in God. If I do tell myself that there is a God, there's a consequence to the life that I'm living, disregarding the sacred values of life. Secondly, you know, a way that a person can sacrifice their future is when they insist on immediate fulfillment of their desires.
Yes.
You know, two perfect examples in the Bible. First and foremost, King David. You know, walking around his house, and he looks and he sees, and he looks again and he looks again and he sees Bathsheba. And he says to one of his officials, hey, I want that lady. I want her. Immediately she comes, and long story short, she gets pregnant. And again, long story short, what he plans to do, what he does actually, he sends this woman's husband out to the battlefield to die. Sends her out. This was a man that was destined for greatness from young, King David. Yes. This was a man that God saw when no one else saw, yes. King David. A man that became a king. But yet, he sent someone out to their death. Another person that comes to mind, or another example that comes to mind, is Samson. You know, known as the strongest man in the world. Yeah. Samson could pretty much do anything. You know, he killed not one Philistine, but 1,000 Philistines with a donkey jawbone. This was a man that had serious power. Yes. But he was immoral. He wasn't living right. You know, he'd sleep around with different people from different tribes, prostitutes here, women here, doing loads of different things. And there was a lady that got introduced to him, a lady named Delilah. And what Samson did is that he played the fool. He played the fool. You know, she asked him 3 times, what's your secret? 3 times he told her lies, and those 3 times, as she found out they were lies, she was plotting to kill him. She was plotting to hand him over to the Philistines, but Samson wasn't realizing what was taking place here. So what he does, he eventually tells her what happens, why he's so strong. He says, my hair is my strength. She cuts his hair off. Philistines come in and they take him to prison, but they don't just put him into prison, they blind him too. You know, and as he's playing the fool here in that situation with Delilah, he goes on to actually play the fool. He's a prisoner and he's being brought out as entertainment for the Philistines now. You know, when you play the fool in life, you know, you're made not to be seen now as an enemy to God. You're made not to be seen now, not to be seen now as an enemy to the actual enemies. You're made to be seen as a fool. You're laughed at. You're someone that's here for the fun and games now. You're someone that's here, people are pointing them and they're saying, hey, give me another dance, you fool. The crowd is laughing at him. People are laughing. No longer is he an enemy. No longer is he this dangerous man, Samson, but he's the fool. He became the fool. He played the fool. He became the fool. And it's an understanding here that when we sow, we reap. Yeah. You know, sometimes you can sow and you can reap more than what you sow. Sometimes you can sow and then later on down the line you can reap. Samson played the fool. And the question that came to mind as I'm thinking about this as well is that there's some things that I can do sometimes. There are some things that we can possibly do sometimes, and we will decide to think about it. We'll decide to ponder on it. But the real question is it going to lead you to a place where you're going to play the fool? Is it going to lead me to a place where people are going to laugh at me, or people are going to ridicule me simply because I didn't think about the consequences? See, when David done what he had done, he had made a decision that was irreversible. But it was irrevocable. God speaks about David and he says he was a man after my own heart. A man after my own heart. He made a decision, yes, he did. But it was revoked. It was reversed. It was turned around. It wasn't what it should have been. It could have led to a place of torment. It could have led to a place of hurt and pain for many other people. But God said, I can turn the situation around. You know, we shouldn't be making decisions when we're physically or emotionally weak. In our physical or emotional weakness, we shouldn't be making decisions. This is exactly what Esau done. In the moment of his weakness, he comes to his brother, and his brother plays him the fool, and he says, hey, give me your birthright. Give me something that is precious. He says, give me that bowl of soup. Don't care. I want it now. I just want the soup now. Because this is what's available to me. This is what I can grasp hold of now. I don't care about the price of later. All I care about is the price of now. All I care about is what I want now. This is what I want. Goes on to say Esau was vexed at Jacob. He was vexed. He understood that he made a massive mistake here. He understood that, hey, I gave something massive away simply for a bowl of soup. A moment of pleasure. The Bible actually speaks about moments of pleasure. It says that sin only satisfies for a season. Are we living to satisfy ourselves for a season? Or are we living to satisfy ourselves for eternity? Because at the right time, God can step in. If we satisfy ourselves for eternity, hey, you're not selling yourself short. You are not. Because when you keep your eyes fixed on the eternal, God steps in at the perfect time. Yes. God steps in at the right time. Someone once said, God's timing is perfect. Yes. It may not be the timing we want, but it's the timing we need. God's timing is perfect. But we live in a society that's offering temporary pleasure, that's offering soups of drugs, soups of sex, soups of all these other things. They're offering loads of different bowls of soup. Bowls of alcohol soup. You can buy as much alcohol as you want. You can drink as much as you want. But it's not telling you you're going to become a slave to it. It's not telling you you're going to become addicted to it. It's not telling you that your family's going to be a wreck to it. It's not telling you that your friends, that people are going to begin to ridicule you. It's not telling you all these things. I remember in 2012, I went to an impact team to Ireland, Dublin. This was the St. Patrick's Day weekend. It was lit. Yeah. Like, things were happening that I've never seen before. Yeah. I could never imagine it in Ireland as well. The crowds of people, it was full. Went there, we did our outreach, we were doing music on the streets, people were coming around us, gathering, people were dancing, all sorts of stuff was going on. It was heavy. We did a concert at the end of it. And it was a great weekend. Lives were saved, the church was blessed. We came home, and I remember reading reading a newspaper report of a car accident that took place that weekend. You know, a bus driver had gone to the pub just before his shift. We know what happens there, don't we? We know what happens at the pub. You know, he went to the pub just before his shift. And his friend says, you know, I don't know what happened. He just went for a drink. Just a drink. But he walks into his shift. He goes to his shift. A few minutes after, about 20 minutes later after he started his shift, 8 people, including himself, pass away. The consequences of just having a drink. Just a drink. You know, bowls of drugs. You know, many people get themselves hooked onto different sorts of drugs. You know, different sorts of things. But, you know, the reality is at the beginning, you know, when they're starting off, they don't tell themselves, hey, I'm going to be addicted. They don't tell themselves, hey, I'm going to get hooked onto this drug and I'm going to constantly be taking things out. I'm constantly going to be selling things just so I can get these drugs now. I'm constantly going to be doing these things just so I can get hooked, just so I can get that bit of taste. But the consequences are, it could ruin our lives. We can get hooked. It could be destructive. It could be something that can take many things away from our lives and leave us empty. There's a price that is paid with taking drugs. You know, bowls of adultery and fornication too. You know, I don't even have to. Do I really have to? No, bowls of adultery and fornication. You know, this adultery and fornication is actually being normalized now in the world that we live in. It's actually being normalized in schools. It's actually being normalized amongst friends. This is something that's very, very normal. To go out and sleep with someone, it's very, very normal. You know, I remember being in secondary school and people that slept around, you know, these guys were seen as kings in the schools. These guys were honored in our schools. These guys were people that were saying, hey, you know what, you are the man because you've gone around and you slept around with different people. The truth is, it's being pumped in our faces as well. We see it on TV screens. We see it in the music video, in the billboards. Even in sports we see it. It's being pumped in our faces. And the message that's being pumped behind all these things is that, hey, everybody does it. Everybody does it anyway, so it's okay. It's okay to do it. But they're not reading the small print. And the small print is, even if you sleep with that one person, that one night, it could change the rest of your life forever. That one person can change the rest of your life forever. That one day can change the rest of your life forever. That one relationship can cost you the rest of your life. Not seeing the reality, the consequences of it. And lastly, this is a 2-in-1 flavored bowl of soup. Hatred and unforgiveness or bitterness. You know, when somebody hates someone, it becomes effective. It becomes effective. When someone hates someone, you know, it becomes effective. And it's not just effective to the person that they hate. It's not effective to the person that they hate at all, actually. But it's effective to your emotions. It's effective to your health, to your attitude, to your relationship with people, to your relationship with God. It's effective. It eats away at you. Eats away at your everyday life. But this pain that we go through when we hate someone, or when someone's done something to us, you know, it doesn't just go away with time. You know, but what happens is, if we keep it inside of ourselves, if we hold on to this bitterness, it's like we're leaving the wound exposed. We're leaving the wound exposed. And it's always constantly going to be open unless we find forgiveness. Unless we come to that place of forgiveness, it's always going to be there. It may have been gone at the back of your mind, but it's still there. The reality is, people have done wrong. People do wrong against many different people. I'm sure we've even done wrong to other people. I'm sure even people have done wrong to us. People do wrong, but if Jesus was able to forgive, not just forgive, what people have done wrong in the past, but what people are doing wrong and what people are going to do wrong. What we have done in the past, what we are even doing wrong now, what we are going to do wrong. And what more us? We can come to Jesus and we say, Father, forgive me for I've done wrong on this issue. And then 3 weeks later, we go back and do the same issue and we say, Father, forgive me. Jesus, I'm begging you, please forgive me. Forgive. Forgiveness is hard. It can be hard. It can be. I remember many years back actually, just a pastor preached. I've heard many sermons on forgiveness, but a pastor came to preach at the church. He was a visiting preacher, and he preached a sermon on forgiveness. And again, it made it that the sermon that he preached, it didn't really touch me at that very moment. But when I came to the altar, and I prayed, and I was just saying, God, just, if there's any unforgiveness in me, just help me with this issue. Help me with this situation. If there's anything that I need, if there's anything, find something deep inside my heart. And straight away, God said, there is something that needs to be dealt with. There's something here that needs to be dealt with. So what I did, I went to the pastor at the end of the sermon, and I said, I've got some unforgiveness towards my dad. I've got some unforgiveness towards my parents. I'm just trying to understand, why they never, protected me from the things that I done. Why they never looked after me while I was doing all the madness that I was doing. Why they never questioned me while I was doing all that I was doing. Pastor paused for a moment, looked at me, and he said to me, Jan, parents did the best that they could. And it set me free. Sometimes, we can ask ourselves these questions. Why don't people get involved? Why don't people do this? Why don't people do that for me? They're just trying to do the best that they could. And the best that my dad could do was work and provide. Work and provide. Because that's all he knew how to do. That was the best that he could do. I remember sitting in my parents' home a few weeks after that, just speaking to my dad about this issue, and it really set me free. That I could say to him, you know what? I had this against you, and you didn't even know. I had this pain, and you didn't even know, but can you please just forgive me for what I've been holding this whole time? Can you please forgive me for what has been happening or been festering in my heart this whole time? Now, when we forgive, it cleanses, or it removes, the things that are in our eyes, the things that are blocking our pathways. For that moment, we can ask ourselves, what's actually happening inside my heart? What's going on inside my heart? Why do I keep chasing these moments of pleasures? Why do I keep trying to fulfill myself with these moments of pleasures? What's going on? What am I chasing after? Is there something, or is there someone that needs to be forgiven? Is there a bowl of soup that we need to deal with? Is there a bowl of soup in our lives that we need to get rid of? Is there a bowl of soup in our lives that we can just deal with? This is the place that you can deal with it, at the altar. Right here, when you come before God will help you. God will help you. He will minister to you. And He will let you know. He will remind you, I can take away the burdens. I can take away all those things that you're battling with. I can take away all those things that have been weighing you down, all those things that you've been trying to get rid of, all those things that you've been suppressing, all those things that you tried to cover over. I can get rid of it here. Just come to me. There's a blessing installed for us something installed for us when we get rid of these bowls of soup. Amen. With that, can I have every head bowed and every eye closed? Just in respect to God, in respect to your neighbor. Every head bowed and every eye closed.